Hey friends, it's me, the Ebony Otaku, the well-rounded nerd. I hope you enjoyed your Thanksgiving holiday. I enjoyed my Thanksgiving holiday and took some much needed time off from everything in my life. But it's time to get back to reading, and I thought I'd pick up with another chapter out of Fulgrim since we've been having so much fun with it. And before we dive right in, thank you to everyone who has subscribed recently and bumped up my views. I really appreciate it. It is fun to see how many people are interested in these nerdy things. I do have tons of other nerdy stuff to talk about, but the reading is so much fun that I'll make sure to do my best, at least weekly, to get some kind of reading up. And the contest is still going. We're inching toward that 500. So once I get that 500 subscribers and followers on Twitter, Instagram, and where am I? YouTube. Nerdy prizes. And I have tons of nerdy prizes, but specifically three to represent the three platforms. Although I'm not sure I'm counting Twitter as much because we all know the reasons. We don't have to talk about them. But thank you. And I want to thank you by nerding out with you. So yeah, let's make that happen. And yes, new hair because I'm a woman and it's my prerogative to change my hair as often as I like. So let's get to Chapter 11. The Seer. The Perdus Anomaly. The Book of Horizon. From Fulgrim. Visions of Treachery by Graham McNeil. Amid the empty reaches of space, a pinprick of light shone like a jewel upon a pall of velvet. A mournful glow lost in the wilderness as it traveled through. It was a ship, though not a ship that would be recognized by any but the most diligent remembrancer who had scoured the depths of the Emperor's Librarium Sanctus of Terra for the references to the lost Eldar civilization. The mighty ship was a craft world, and it possessed a grace that human shipwrights could only dream of. Its colossal length was fashioned from a substance that resembled yellow bone, and its form was more akin to something that had grown rather than been built. Gem-like domes reflected the weak starlight, and an inner radiance glistened like phosphorus through their semi-transparent surfaces. Graceful minarets rose in scattered ivory clusters, their tapered tops shining gold and silver, and wide spires of bone swept from vessels' flanks, where a fleet of elegant ships like ancient sea galleons was docked. Vast conglomerations of wondrously designed habitations clung to the surface of the mighty craft world, and a host of twinkling lights described beautiful traceries through cities. A great sail of gold and black soared above the mighty vessel's body, rippling in the stellar wind as it piled its lonely course. The craft world traveled alone, its stately progress through the stars like the last pre-generation of an elderly thespian before his final curtain. Lost in the vastness of space, the craft world floated in utter isolation. No starshine illuminated its sleek towers, and distant from all warmth of sun or planet, its domes stared into the darkness of empty space. Few, outside of those who lived long and melancholy lives aboard the graceful space city, could know that it was home to a few survivors of planets abandoned eons ago amidst terrifying destruction. Upon this craft world dwelled the Eldar, a race all but extinct, the last remnants of a people that had once ruled the galaxy and whose mere dreams had overturned worlds and quenched suns. The interior of the greatest dome upon the craft world's surface shimmered with a pallid glow, its translucency enclosing a multitude of crystal trees that stood beneath the light of long dead stars. Smooth pathways wove through the glittering forest, their courses unknown to even those who trod them. A silent song echoed through the dome, unheard and invisible, but achingly yearned for upon its absence. The ghost of ages past and ages yet to come filled the dome, for it was a place of death, and, perversely, a place of immortality. A lonely figure sat cross-legged in the center of the forest, a spot of darkness amongst the glowing crystal trees. Eldrad Uthran, farseer of the craft world Ulthwé, smiled wistfully as the songs of long-dead seers filled his heart with joy and sadness in equal measure. His smooth features were long and angular, his bright eyes narrow and oval. Dark hair swept over his tapered, graceful ears, gathered at the nape of his neck in a long scalp lock. He wore a cream-colored cloak and a tunic of flowing black cloth, gathered at the waist by a golden belt studded with gems and fashioned with complex runes. Eldrad's right hand rested on the trunk of a crystal tree, its structure veined with darting lights and suggestion of peaceful faces swimming in its depths. His other hand held a long seer staff of the same material as the ship, its gem-encrusted surface redolent with dangerous powers. The visions were coming again, stronger than before, and his dreams were troubled with their meaning. Since the horror of the fall, a dark, bloody age where the Eldar had paid the price for their complacency and wild indulgences, Eldrad had guided his race through times of great crisis and desperation, but none had come close to the great calamity he felt gathering, a storm at the end of his vision. A time of chaos was set to descend on the galaxy, as calamitous as the fall, and just as momentous. Yet, he could not see it clearly. Yes, his journey along the path of Seer had seen his race saved from danger 100 times and more over the centuries, but his sight had faded in recent days. The gift had gone. The gift had gone from him as he sought to penetrate the veil that had been drawn over the warp. He had begun to fear that his gift had deserted him, but the song of the ancient seers called him to the dome, calming his spirit and showing him the true path as they had led him through the forest to this place. Now, time out here. For those who aren't well scripted and versed in the lore of Warhammer, there's a lot of races, but there are in most fantasy hobbies. You can kind of think of the Eldar as the elves of Warhammer. They are amongst the most ancient of beings in the universe. They predate humanity by eons, an immeasurable time, and they foresaw humans and what humans would mean to the universe. Particularly, they foresaw the coming of the Emperor of mankind. Now, you have to remember, history is always written by the people who won and from the perspective of the people who won. And when we're reading or experiencing the Warhammer universe, it is from the perspective typically of the Imperium of Man. It is from the perspective of the will of the Emperor and the will of the Lords of Terra, depending on what half of Warhammer, whether it's Warhammer, Warhammer 40K, or the current, books that are coming out, wherever you happen to be, Earth rules, basically. From the perspective of humans and the Emperor, everything that's not human needs to be destroyed so that humans can flourish. However, everywhere that humans go, they seem to destroy things. Now, when the Emperor began his conquest of all human worlds to bring them into the family of the Imperium, not all worlds that were discovered to have humans and humanoid beings on them were terrible. There were some that were beautiful. Monarchia is a great example of that. The beautiful, perfect city of Monarchia, which I believe is on the home world of, let me get it right because somebody came for me because I said a wrong name. But there's a lot of names here. I believe it's on the home world of Lorgar, the Bearers of the World, the perfect city of Monarchia, which got destroyed, but that's in another video. So there are evidences that humans can do beautiful things. There are some beautiful human cities, establishments where humans have learned to be one with nature. But more often, you'll find that humans have, like humans gonna do, have done some things to the worlds that they have inhabited over the millennia. There are a lot of hive cities. Humans, rather than what we see in our modern times in this thing we call Earth today, that everyone has the right to pursue, what brings them joy and to contribute to society, and we're all individuals and be the best you can be. No, humans are a resource in the world of Warhammer, and depending on which world you were born in, you might have been a valued resource, treated well, or you were no better than sheep and cattle, meant to be used up and sacrificed for the greater good. And you were more likely to be born on a world like that than into a world of privilege and safety and peace. And the Eldar foresaw this, and they have a specific rank of Foreseer, where having the precog talent, but also being trained over some years, Foreseers can see far into the future, but not just future seeing, but actually seeing ramifications of actions and how to manipulate over time, which is where my favorite character, John Grammaticus, comes in. He is actually working with a conglomerate of Eldar and other Xenos species who understand that the Emperor's ultimate goal is not good for the universe as a whole, and he is a perpetual human who is turned against his own race and is working with the Eldar strategically to bring down certain elements of humanity. And as the Eldar have seen their own worlds destroyed, they live on what are called craft worlds that are just basically giant planets they built. That's the best way I can describe it, that float through the universe with the remnants of their society. Now, there's still a lot of them, but there's not as many of them as there used to be, not even close. A lot of that because humans gonna kill anything that's not human. And then, of course, there's the denizens of the warp and chaos, which unfortunately, because of the Emperor's tinkering, a lot of that was unleashed in levels into the universe that it hadn't been before. And that's where that manifest destiny turns into something that does not benefit all life. Because even though I think the Emperor may have had humanity's best interest in mind, he didn't have the living universe as a whole. He didn't have that interest in his mind. And because of that, there are more lives at stake than just humanity. And the Eldar have a vision of all life in the universe, and humanity only sees themselves. Sound familiar? That's why Warhammer is so interesting, and you should read it. Because there's a lot of commentary in there that goes very, very deep. So then the big battle really is, of the war that's always raging, is who's right? Is the cause of humanity and the Emperor the ultimate good, or the cause of the universe the ultimate good? And chaos is just chaos. They don't care. They're just there to do what chaos does and cause chaos. And they will work with, for, and against whoever is with, for, and against them. That's what they do. And sometimes chaos is just satisfied hanging out in the warp, being chaos. And sometimes they find ways to get into the human world, but because of the Emperor's psychic experiments, because of the star maelstrom, the Eye of Terror, that hole in space and time that's basically a portal for the warp and chaos to pour into the realm of the materium, because that exists and humans caused it, now there's more of that out there than there ever should have been. Because used to be, if you wanted to get to the warp, had to do some things. There were steps. Now there's not really steps. It's just part of life. So humans get a human. And there are races out there in this universe that are not exactly anti-human. They're anti-destruction of the universe. I can kind of get behind that. But just to give a little bit of a level set, I'm not reading this entire chapter. I'm really concerned with the Eldar portion. But let us continue now that editing Ebony broke in. Eldrad let his mind float free of his body, feeling the shackles of flesh left behind as he rose higher and faster. He passed through the pulsing wraith bone of the dome and out into the clouds of darkness of space. Though his spirit felt neither warmth nor cold, stars flashed past him as he traveled the great void of the warp, seeing the echoes of ancient races lost to legend, the seeds of future empires, and the great vigor of the latest race to forge destiny among the stars. Humanity, they called themselves, though Eldrad knew them as the Monkey, a brutal, short-lived race that was spreading across the heavens like a virus. From the cradle of their birth, they had conquered their solar system and then exploded across the galaxy in a vast crusade that absorbed the lost fragments of their earlier empire and destroyed those that stood in their way without mercy. The sheer bellicosity and hubris of this endeavor astounded Eldrad, and he could already see the seeds of humanity's destruction lodged in their hearts. How such a primitive species could achieve so much and not be driven insane by their sheer insignificance in the grand scheme of the cosmos defied understanding. But they were possessed of such rampant self-belief that their own mortality and insignificance did not penetrate their conscious minds until it was too late. Already Eldrad had seen the death of their race, the blood-soaked fields of the world named for their end of days, and the final victory of the Dark Savior. Would their course be altered by knowledge of their inevitable doom? Of course it would not, for a race such as the Monkey would never accept the inevitable, and would always seek to change that which could not be changed. He saw the rise of warriors, the treachery of kings, and the great eye opening to release the mighty heroes of legend, trapped there to return to their warriors' sides for the final battle. Their future was war and death, blood and horror. Yet still, they would push ever onwards, convinced of their own superiority and immortality. And yet, perhaps their doom was not inevitable. Despite the bloodshed and despair, there was still hope, the flickering ember of an unwritten future guttered in darkness, its light surrounded by amorphous, warp-spawned monsters with great yellowed fangs and talons. Eldrad saw that they hoped to extinguish this light by their very presence. And as he looked into the fading dream of the future, he saw what might yet come to pass. He saw a great warrior of regal countenance, a towering giant in sea green armor with great amber eye at the center of his breastplate. This mighty figure fought through a host of the dead and on sickly planet decay, his sword cleaving score of corpses with every blow. Warp light filled the rotted eye sockets of the dead, and the energies of the Lord of Pestilence gave their limbs fierce animation. The calamitous doom of his race hung around this warrior like a shroud, though he knew it not. Eldrad's spirit flew close to the light, trying to discern the identity of the warrior. The warped beast roared and gnashed their teeth, flailing in idiot blindness at his spirit form. The warp seized around him, and Eldrad knew of the monstrous gods of the warp, would not stand for his presence, as the currents of the warp sought to cast his spirit back to his body. Eldrad fought to hold on to the vision, extending his warp sight as far as he dared. Images flooded his mind: a cavernous throne room, a great godlike figure in gleaming armor of gold and silver, a sterile chamber deep beneath the mountain, and a betrayal of such magnitude that his soul burned with the enormity of it. Cries of anguish echoed all around him, and he fought to hold on to some sense of them as the power of the warp hurled him away from this jealously guarded secret. Words formed from the cries, but few offered any meaning or understanding, their essence burning in his mind with a fierce light. Crusade, hero, savior, destroyer. But above them all, blazing brighter than all others, Warmaster. I love Warhammer. It really appeals to my inner snob with the way the authors write, and it challenges your intelligence and perception of things. And that's what good literature does. It should challenge you. Good art should make you think, although art is completely subjective. But good art makes you think. It makes you ponder. It makes you want to stretch the reaches of your imagination beyond what you thought possible or even real. And I think that's why Warhammer appeals to me so much. Obviously, Harry Potter fan, Transformer fan, anime fan. I'm a fan of all the things. But the stories of Warhammer resonate the most with me, especially in these modern times, because I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned here. And I want to spread the good news of Warhammer as far and wide as I can. Now, 'tis the holiday season, so uploading will be sporadic, but I'm going to do my best because I have some other readings I want to do specifically for the holidays, The Grinch being one of them. And then also, I'm a December baby. So in the month of December, I have a policy of not saying no to any nerdy thing that I want. So look out for some of my nerdy accumulations over the next 30 days. And mostly not to brag, but just, look at all the nerdy stuff that's out there. Celebrate and support all the nerdiness that's available to us because we don't want this to stop, okay? All right, be happy for all the movies, all the TV shows, all the makeup, all the action figures, all the games, all the books, all the everything. Because the world is catering to the dork right now, and I'm here for it. Let's not do anything to make this train stop anytime soon. Yes, thank you and please. So that's it for today. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.